dollars, 300,000.
Yeah.
570.
Yeah. Thank you all for being here. I want to thank Heather from the Chamber. Thank you again for letting us have this gathering today in this news conference. And I want to start off by stating the obvious, which is this is a terrible water year for irrigated agriculture in the Klamath Basin. But I remain fully committed to doing everything I can to provide emergency assistance and given the circumstances we're in. Just 2 days ago, we learned of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling, which is having a devastating effect in the basin regarding water. And now the state of Oregon is clamping down on farmers in the upper basin as a result of the adjudication. We hoped we would not be in this situation, but I think it comes not as a huge surprise given the water conditions and the kind of drought we're in. And so we've been planning all along for the worst and preparing to do everything we can to be helpful along the way. I've been in constant contact with the administration. In fact, I just stepped out to take a call from the Office of Management and Budget. We've been working with them to help facilitate an expedited review of the money that was set aside to provide for emergency relief for pumping and idling and disaster relief. I think that number will be about $10.3 million, and I'll talk about that in a little while. I've been in meetings with Secretary Zinke and phone calls. I was down at his office 2 weeks ago today for at least an hour and a half, where we talked about a number of issues, but specifically the water situation in the Klamath Basin with the director of the Reclamation, and Alan Mickelson, and others. And I know the administration is very committed to doing everything within its power and the law to provide help here in the Klamath Basin. As you know, in the omnibus appropriation bill, which I supported, we were able to get the funding in there for emergency relief. That funding now is working through the Bureau of Rec's action plan for this coming fiscal year. That's what's at the Office of Management and Budget awaiting approval. I work closely with Senator Wyden and Senator Merkley on that. The funding, as I said, is at OMB, and we're trying to do everything we can to bust it loose as soon as possible. Rather than in the next few weeks, we'd like to see it in the next few days, and that's what they're working on. With that $10.3 million, I think it brings to well over $40 million that's come into the basin since '08. And the Bureau would tell you that there's no basin in their 17 states that's received more funding in drought conditions than this one. But we know we have more work to do. I'd like to let you know that Jeff Nettleton will speak in a minute and give you a statement from the Bureau of Reclamation. But because the plan is not all the way through OMB, their rules preclude him from talking about the specifics of their work plan. So he won't be able to take questions on that until OMB signs off on it. But it's important to know that we obtained new authorities for the Bureau of Reclamation in the legislation that was signed by President Trump that allows the movement of non-project water through the Bureau of Reclamation facilities. Last night I spoke with the Bureau of Reclamation Commissioner Brenda Berman about this, and we're working with the Bureau to try and make sure that off-project water that moves through the project doesn't end up being charged for it. So we're working through some of those issues as well. I want to stress that this is authority that was never before in the law, so we're trying to get flexibility for water management in the basin, and as I say, we're working with the Bureau and OMB and others in the administration to get this all approved as soon as possible. I hope that the governor will exercise the greatest amount of flexibility as possible for the upper basin issue. I recognize water law, I respect that, but we would hope that in a year like this and everything that's at stake, that we would have as much flexibility as possible. Additionally, Peggy Brown is here. She is the Oregon State Director for the Farm Service Agency, appointment of this administration. We've been working with her to ensure that the upper basin folks have the ability to utilize the ELAP program within the USDA. She'll be talking about that program and other help that FSA can provide. In conclusion, let me say again, we're all committed to working to get the agriculture community through this awful water year. We're doing everything we can, and I'm assured at the top levels, the Department of Interior, Department of Agriculture, and the White House itself, that they are all committed to doing everything within the law that's possible to get done. So thank you for letting me be here today. I will turn it over now to Klamath County Commissioner Donnie Boyd.
Good afternoon, everybody. I didn't have a prepared statement, so I'm going to make this quick. To be real honest, when I read a prepared statement, I get teary and I cry. So here, the reality is, there's two constants in the Klamath Basin. It's a great people and Congressman Walden. Every single time, and here I am, I'm getting nervous again. But every time agriculture in the Klamath Basin is threatened, this man's here. And I want to say thank you, Greg. One other thing I got to say is right now there's some of us that are frustrated with the Bureau of Reclamation. And I honestly believe that this next man, Jeff Nittleton, is doing everything he can to help us. And you know, it's easy to take our frustrations out on a guy that has been here for 2 years, maybe. He's trying to figure out who we all are. But I don't think that's really fair. And I think the Bureau is working hard to help us within the confines of the law. They can only move so much. And the reality is they answer to people way higher than the local area office here. So here's Jeff Nittleton.
Well, thank you, Congressman Walden, for all the support that you've given the Klamath Basin through the years and for the efforts to help the Klamath Project water. We appreciate that very much. And Donnie, thank you for that introduction. I'm humbled by that. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today, and as Congressman Walden stated, we're in a very, very challenging water year, a very difficult situation. The current hydrology and the court order that we're under relative to the Endangered Species Act really has our hands tied. And as far as the available water supply that we have to meet all the various needs of the basin. And we went back to the court to try and amend that injunctive order to get some relief specifically for the dilution flows, and we were denied that injunctive relief. As Mr. Walden stated earlier this week, and that makes it all the more difficult. But we will not let down on that. We intend to pursue an appeal to that court order, and as we work through our reconsultation process, I believe that we have good scientific background to lend to the arguments that we have relative to the dilution flows. Reclamation has been working closely with all the parties in the basin, Klamath water users, the irrigation districts, the district managers, and to find opportunities to deliver water to the project while still meeting these legal requirements in the court order, as well as our tribal trust responsibilities. And all of us here in the basin are working together as neighbors, and that's really important to make it through this challenging water year. The results of these partnerships and the collaborative efforts that are going on are making a difference already. And I'll just touch on a couple of things that we've been working on. Thanks to an agreement we made to borrow water from the Pacific Corps, we have been able to charge the project canals, and we are beginning to have water moving in the basin. As was indicated by Congressman Walden, we are working on the agreements and contracts to utilize groundwater to convey that groundwater in the project facilities, and we are about there on those issues. We're actively looking for additional sources of water to supplement the project water supply and help with the shortage. The water users have been coming to the table with creative solutions, and that's been very helpful. And we're working to comply with Congress's direction in the omnibus to provide a spend plan by May 7th, which is just Monday, so days away. We're also developing plans and agreements to utilize that funding once it becomes available. So things that we're working on, everything's on the table. When our spend plan is approved, we'll work with the stakeholders to see what activities we can undertake within our existing authorities. And we are working as creatively on that as we can. And I just want to emphasize we remain in close contact with water users. We receive updates to the disease management criteria every Thursday morning. And so we have set up weekly meetings with the water users on Thursdays to discuss exactly what that means. And for those of you not familiar, that's if we trigger or don't trigger the disease criteria that they then have to release the 50,000 acre feet. So we'll be working with the water users, and on a real-time basis, we're going to make our estimates of the amount of water that's available to the project, begin to convey that water to the project as early as possible. So our desire there is we're committed to provide everyone in the basin with the very best information that we have as early as possible. So thanks.
I'd like to welcome Peggy Brown up, talk about the support services from USDA.
So good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Peggy Brown, and I'm with the Farm Service Agency, USDA in Oregon. I'm the State Executive Director. Since this is my first time getting to greet you here in Klamath, let me just give you a really short glimpse of my background. I come from Eastern Oregon, farming and ranching background, and have very recently come into this position. But we've hit the ground running, especially on this issue. So I have a little bit that I can tell you today, but as with all of the management decisions that you're probably having to make right now, much of what we can offer is going to be predicated on the weather in the next coming month or couple of months. So with that, let me start with the NAP program. So that is the Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assurance Program. And most of you that already have this will know about it, and those of you that don't, unfortunately, to get this program and be enrolled in it for this year, the deadline has already passed. But what is going to be really important with that program, if in fact you are enrolled in it, is this program covers low yields, loss of inventory, and prevented planting due to natural disasters. When you come in and talk to our folks in the county office, you're going to need to bring some evidence in with you about that you did try to plant your crop so that we can file your paperwork as necessary. One of the things that I want to encourage everybody to do who is interested in some of the Farm Service Agency programs is get in as soon as possible, make an appointment with our local county folks. We have somebody here in the audience. Her name is Laura Hall, and she'll be making her way around and introducing herself to everybody as she can, but she's the person that you're all going to want to meet with. The other side of the coin is the federal crop insurance program that you purchase through RMA and your local insurance agent. That would be for your traditional crops that are traditionally covered, potatoes, onions, etc. Now, all of these have their own individual deadlines for reporting, so again, I encourage you to visit with Laura. One point that I want to make very clear is that federal disaster programs are not dependent on state disaster declarations. So even though the governor has declared this area a drought disaster, we have to rely on the National Drought Monitor. So with that, you are currently designated as a D1 drought. As water gets shorter and times get drier, that will likely be elevated to a D2. For our drought programs to kick in, this area needs to be at a D2 drought for 8 consecutive weeks, or hit a D3 any one day and you're automatically qualified. That's when the suite of programs that will, I think, be very helpful to farmers and ranchers will really kick in. Such as what the Congressman alluded to earlier, ELAP, so the Emergency Systems for Livestock Program, the Livestock Forage Program, and the Livestock Indemnity Program. Of course, there's a million details for those programs, but those cover things like lost forage, costs for water hauling to livestock, many of the extra costs that you would incur as a result for drought. I want to assure you that we are communicating early, often, and as much as possible with not only our sister agencies across the border in California, because I know many people here have holdings in California, and we want to make sure that you are receiving the same message from us as well as from them, and that we're applying the program similarly to everybody. But we are also coordinating with NRCS, RMA, and our sister state agencies, Oregon Water Resources Department, Oregon Department of Agriculture, Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, and hopefully coming up with some out-of-the-box and innovative thinking to help when we can. We definitely want to be engaged at any point possible in this process. To close, I want to say that we need to hear from you so that we can make sure that we're providing all the help possible and putting in all the different components that we possibly can put in. So again, I encourage everyone to make an appointment and visit with our local county staff person, Laura Hall. And again, thank you for letting me be here and make a few points. Thank you.
Now, to wrap it up, we'll hear from Scott White, Klamath Water Users Association.
Thank you, Congressman. First and foremost, for those of you on TV or watching this on film, what you can't see is the amount of people that are out here, which just, in my mind, it really highlights the importance of this issue. You know, I really want to echo what Commissioner Boyd said. Congressman Walden, thank you so much. I think what he just explained to you is his humble effort of what he's working on. What he didn't express is all the other duties and responsibilities that he has to do back there in Washington for us and for everybody else. And he's working this hard on Klamath right now. And so thank you so much. And to Jeff, the Bureau of Reclamation, you know, we're hearing that Klamath is getting more attention than anywhere else in the country right now from the Department of Interior, the Bureau of Reclamation. And so, I mean, to Jeff, to Commissioner Berman, to the Secretary, thank you so much for that as well. It's really important. It's really important. So I wanted to touch further on the court decision and what I think that means for all of you out here and everybody watching. You know, obviously we're disappointed. Obviously we're hoping for a different result, and it would have been extremely helpful for the situation if we got a different result. That being said, though, it doesn't mean that we don't have any water. I think I read that our start date was going to be June 1st or June 15th. There still is a little bit of water. That can create its own problems, and I would encourage everybody to talk to your neighbors, talk to your districts, and try and figure out how we are going to spread that water the best we can, because it is going to be extremely challenging because it is not a lot of water. That water situation is going to improve with time. We're hopeful that these dilution flows don't transpire to anything. We end up with an additional 50,000 at the end. I think it's likely that they will, though. That's just my own personal opinion. So again, I just want to highlight that we need to work together through this as neighbors, as a community, so that we don't have further issues than we already have right now. So I strongly encourage that. For the last couple of nights, I've lost a lot of sleep, and what I've been thinking about mostly, and I've had conversation with folks that have been doing this and been around it for a lot longer than I have, and a lot longer than many of you in the room. And I've been hearing about everything that agriculture has been doing for fish and the fisheries for nearly a generation and sometimes longer. At some point, we're going to have to recognize that we are not getting the fruit that we are trying to bear from that. We're going to have to think about this differently. And I'm not looking at any of you in the room right here. I'm looking at everybody else who's not in the room that thinks that agriculture is the problem and the solution. It's not. They have been trying to solve these problems for years and years and years. And the fish folks need to think about it differently. We are not seeing the fish numbers turn around like we've been hoping. In fact, they're going in the opposite direction is what we're hearing. So let's look at this best available science that's out there and really try to identify what quote unquote best available science means, because we've got to see changes. We've got to start seeing results. And so I would just encourage everybody to start thinking more creatively and be open to listening to some creative solutions. Finally, I think I just want to mention the OFF project as well. I've heard a lot of people say, hey, can you compare this to 2001? Yes, I can. And I think in addition to 2001, we have an OFF project that's suffering right now too. So I think that needs to be recognized. I think that OFF project folks that may be here or who aren't here, my heart goes out to you. I'm thinking about you, and I think everybody in this room probably feels the same way. So thank you, Peggy, for being here. Your programs are going to be super helpful for them. And that's just another reason we need to come up with a solution for this entire basin right here. So that being said, thanks again, Congressman. Thanks, Commissioner. And Jeff, thank you very much. Thanks.
take a few questions from the press. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Sure.
I appreciate that. My question is kind of based on something you mentioned about the governor who asked for flexibility while following the law. What would that mean?
Well, I hope as they evaluate which ranchers are going to be able to pump and which aren't, that they look at it with the most flexibility in mind and not be the most stringent. You know, if there is flexibility, let's observe it in this time. This basin is suffering, and with the adjudication as it plays out, they may have no flexibility. They may have to shut down all of those. But I sure hope they think long and hard about it. If there is room to make a different decision, that they'll take into account the impact on ranchers in the upper basin. Look, I know they've got legal obligations, not asking not to follow the law, but sometimes there are close calls, and I hope in the area of close calls, given how many wells will be shut down, they'll err on the side of letting a little water flow. So that's where I'm at. Look, I was here during the Bucket Brigade in 2001. We saw what we went through. After that, we were able to get the 8 canal screened, got Chiloquin Dam removed. I mean, to Scott's point and others, we've done a lot in this basin over time as a community, as farmers, ranchers, tribes, everybody trying to get things done. And it seems like no matter what we do, we don't get credit for it. And so I think we've got to take another look at science, what's working, what's not, and not repeat the same mistakes and get to a better outcome. Wow.
What do you see as the most effective way to use this $10 million?
Well, I would like to see the bulk of it be put toward helping lower the cost of pumping, because if there is water, crops need water. I mean, that's the first and foremost. It may be that they will be able to do some water exchanges around the basin. You know, there's quite an elaborate pumping or water passage system in this basin, I think unlike anywhere else in the West. And so I know in talking with Jeff and Brenda and others, they're going to look at every possible means to move water around and maximize its use. And so I'm hoping that we put enough flexibility in this funding, the $10.3 billion, which is I think the number that will come out of OMB, and gave them new authorities to the extent that they now can look at this more broadly and use it to the best benefit of the agriculture community.
Is that amount specifically for the Klamath Basin?
Yes.
Or does that include Southern Oregon?
Well, it would be for the Klamath Basin. That's what it was intended when we wrote it. You know, with the ban on earmarks and that sort of thing, there are a lot of understandings. We didn't put Klamath specifically. We didn't need to because that's well understood. And my friend and colleague Mike Simpson chairs that appropriation subcommittee, and we had a meeting with the Bureau and Department of Interior to reinforce what our intent was, what we expect the Bureau to do just a week or two ago. And so we're fully committed at that level. And we're entering into a new appropriation season. Remember, that's for this fiscal year. So we're entering into a new one, and that will open up opportunities to try and do more going into the next fiscal year.
Without it being named specifically for the basin, is it possible to use anywhere in Southern Oregon?
No, there's a pretty clear understanding that this is for the Klamath Basin.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, there will be hell to pay if they take it to move it somewhere else. You can quote me on that.
So with this been happening, have Congress approved the Klamath Basin Restoration Agreement?
Well, I think that's an interesting question. I don't know, you'd have to ask others, but the long and the short of it is the Klamath Basin Agreement couldn't be approved by either the House or the Senate. The votes simply weren't there in the committees of jurisdiction. And so I think what you're seeing with Mr. Mickelson, who is Ryan Zinke's top person, this will be his 8th trip to the Klamath Basin since the Trump administration took office. And he wants to build something that is both provides sustainability for the basin and can actually pass in the Congress. And so I think we need everybody to come to the table and work in that direction. You have to have both to get it done.
What do you need this time that could help it actually come to pass?
Well, I think there are a couple of things, you know, and I don't want to get too much into the details because you don't want to negotiate this in public necessarily, but we're going to need everybody back at the table that wants to be at the table, wants to be part of the solution, and that's the farmers, the ranchers, those engaged in the fish world, those tribal communities. Everybody needs to be at the table, but we have to realize from mistakes of the past that if you can't write something that can pass, you don't have anything. And so let's try and come back together. Senator Wyden, Senator Merkley, and I have had very positive discussions and share a commitment to doing our part together. The Trump administration is very engaged through Alan Mickelson. I don't think there's a region in the country that's receiving more attention right now on this type of solution than the Klamath Basin is.
Is there a name for that? Is there a name for that committee?
No.
No.
All right, thank you very much.